Ah, looks like Banu is here. Hello, Banu. Hello, Nancy.
Hi. Hello, Hope. How are you?
I'm okay.
Good.
Banu, I'm so glad you're going to be telling for us at the workshop. I'm really excited.
It's a great opportunity. I'm excited too. Thank you for the opportunity. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Banu.
How are you?
Harvey, Beatrice.
Hot and sticky. New York is horribly hot and sticky. It's like a sauna.
Hi, Beatrice.
Hey, it's very nice to be here from San Francisco.
Excellent.
I'm sure it's much nicer in San Francisco than it is in New York.
But it's foggy and we might not see the 4th of July fireworks.
We have plenty of fireworks here. We have got, look at these storytellers that we have. We've got fireworks.
Well, for the sake of my cats, I'm kind of hoping for no fireworks because it freaks them out more than a little.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. Well, looks like we have Banu and Harvey. We don't have Lona yet. She'll be our third teller. And Michelle Olson is going to be our fourth. And we have Beatrice, we have you right in the wings. And Chris, keeping Chris company in the wings. Okay. Let me go back down here, see what we need to do, because we are just about at 8:30. So I think we should just go ahead and
we won't see Jim tonight. Speaking of fireworks, we won't see Jim tonight. He had to go home with his family and look at fireworks.
In any case, let me put up the chat screen and ask all of you to do the same. What I'm going to also do, Chris, is I'm going to make you a co-Zoom host because I've been having some issues with the internet here. So I think I'd best do that. So you will appear as a co-host in a few minutes as soon as I get everything up and running. Intro pages. Okay.
There's Michelle. Good evening, Nancy.
Here we go. Excuse me while I shuffle screens, ladies and gents, and that looks like Kurt too. Hello, Kurt. So glad you're here.
Hello.
I'm just going to put some information up in the chat screen first and foremost, because we've got, what did I do with that? Info page. There it is. You all obviously have the link. You know that the challenge is community. What I'm going to do is put up the link to Northeast Storytelling so that you can go and get invitations if you need them and all kinds of stuff like that. Also, the link to the Facebook group in case anyone doesn't have it, as well as our emails, because we always love to hear what you're up to. And the rest of the information particularly pertains to, we are going to be having a mini virtual storytelling guild happening at the workshop at the National Storytelling Network conference. So you are all invited. There's all that information all the way up now on your chat screen with all the links and everything. And I want you to join us on July 27th because we're showing off. And you can help us. Okay, we are already recording. That's good. I've got so many notes to myself because I need to remind you that we are recording and the recording will be made available only to those individuals for whom we have emails. So it's going to be just amongst ourselves. Now, if there are any of you that feel very strongly that you wish to keep your identity and or your story or your comments confidential, please let me know so that I can tell Jim to excise your presence. If it's just a story, it's easy to excise. If it's the whole meeting, if you want to be confidential, I'm going to have to say good night now to you because I can't guarantee that we can keep you absolutely confidential. You've got the email addresses for all of us in case you need us. You're old hands at this, know not to steal anybody else's story or anything like that. One of the things, though, that I did just put on the Facebook page and also send out to you via email was a document called Best Practices, Worldwide Storytelling Guild Best Practices. And it's just kind of an informal set of running rules. And basically, the bottom line is play nice and be respectful. But what I really want you to notice is that we're really trying to make this a incredibly supportive and positive experience for everybody. So thank you. Okay, you've got all the information. Hot stuff. I don't have to repeat that. I don't have any too many new people here. And Michelle, hello. I'm glad you're here. Looks like we're ready to start. And you know what that means, Banu. Banu is bringing us a story tonight, our first story. And I'm looking forward to hearing it. Banu?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you once again, Hope. Hello, everybody. This is a story from a far, far, far away village. It was a beautiful village filled with people like any other villages. They were happy people, they were sad people, they were joyous people, they were gloomy people. And among all the people, there was a beautiful house in the village where lived an old man with his grandson, a little young boy. The old man was really, really old. He had a bent back. He walks with the help of a walking stick. He walks out, looks around the garden, around his house, and he would come back. At times, he would go grab some fruits from the trees and eat it for himself. One morning, the old man woke up with his walking stick and walked and walked and walked and picked up something in his hand and walked towards the garden. There he stopped, and by gathering all his strength that he had, he began to dig the ground. He dug and dug and dug and dug for hours together to make a small pit in the ground. By that time, the young boy who woke up from his bed, he looked around. Where's Grandpa? Grandpa! Grandpa! He rubbed his eyes and he rushed to run out of the house, and there he found the old man. Grandpa! Grandpa! He said, what are you doing here? The old man said, I'm digging a pit. I'm digging a pit to plant a sapling. What? You're too old, Grandpa. Why do you want to plant? But the old man said, the trees will give fruits. This is a guava tree which I'm going to plant. Oh, it would take years together for you to have the fruit. But Grandpa, you're too old now. I don't think, I'm sorry to say, you will live to eat the fruits from this tree? But the old man said, yes, I know. I cannot taste the fruits from this tree. But do you see the tree over there? A raspberry tree? I have eaten many, many fruits from that tree. But I did not plant that. Do you see? Do you see an apple tree over there? I have never planted that tree. It was planted by my forefathers and great-great-grandfathers. Those trees, I tasted the fruits from it. But this tree, I'm planting it for you, and to all the people in the village, for your children and for our community. Oh, that's good. Wait. I too will help you, said the young boy, who ran to fetch a pail of water. And do you believe, the entire day and in the coming days too, the old man and the young boy planted many saplings, which they say grew to a huge tree, and they bore fruits, which maybe we are getting it in the market, which we tasted. Thank you for listening.
Oh, Banu, that's such a wonderful story. Oh, I love it. I've heard other versions of the story, and I must say I like your version best.
Thank you very much. Actually, thanks to Dr. Eric Miller, from whom I heard this story, or I learned this story from. This we practiced for a workshop in Chennai Storytelling Festival. So I just shared this story in a workshop.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing the source too. And the story itself is such a wise one. Beatrice, you had a comment. Beatrice? I think she's frozen.
Beatrice, you're muted.
There we go.
Kindly unmute.
Yes. Unmute yourself, my dear.
No.
Come on. I think we're having some thunderstorms between all of us.
Maybe.
Yes.
Oh, there is Beatrice.
It says,
There you
yeah. Okay. I had a simple thing to say, which is I think your voice is so beautifully measured and sweet. And then I like the fun of the little excited boy and the calm old man. It's charming. Thank you.
Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you for your comments. I think
Yes,
Harvey has.
Thank you, Beatrice. What about you, Michelle? What did you think?
Michelle, unmute yourself.
Had to unmute. So many ways to unmute. I get confused. It was just wonderful. I just felt it the whole way across, and I just love those. I just think it's beautiful for community. It fit right into what the topic was and the lessons that we learned. So thank you. It's the first time I've heard it. Everything's new to me. Thank you.
That's great.
Thank
We
you.
love sharing some of our favorite stories with new tellers, because each time we get to rediscover them ourselves. And that story is a delightful one. What I was looking at was Banu's facial expressions. You have a very expressive face, and I realize how important that is in communicating and with your audience, because we all cue on and focus on facial expressions. So I think you really helped to sell the story, to make it believable with your facial expressions.
Thank you.
Do we have any other comments?
Yes, Harvey.
Harvey has a comment.
I get it.
Go for it, Harvey.
You went right into the story. I mean, the characters and the voices and the way you moved. You were right there, wondering what was going to happen next, and you did it beautifully.
Thank you. I'm looking for a developmental feedback too. If at all anyone feel you have a developmental feedback for me in my telling, and as well in the story as well. Chris, before that, I think you have a comment. Kindly share your comment.
People were talking about the differentiation in your characters. I liked that not only was there a vocal difference between the boy and the grandfather, but there was a physical difference. That when you spoke as the boy, when you spoke as the old man, your actual body was very different. And I liked that you didn't rush it. And like Beatrice said, it was very measured. It was really very carefully told, and it didn't need to go fast. Although when the little boy spoke, you did speak more quickly than when the old man spoke. So it was a really very nice distinction between the two characters, and a really because it wasn't hugely active. There wasn't a lot of jumping up and down in that story. It was really very nicely presented that this was a quiet story, but it was still. I think we all wanted it to end like that. That's what we all wanted to happen. I think we were sticking up for the old man.
Yes.
to say that.
Mhm.
Thank you. It was lovely.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Banu has also asked.
For me,
Banu has asked for some constructive comments about perhaps some ideas of ways that she could improve this particular story. Does anyone have any idea, any thoughts of any kind of little changes she might make to improve it?
yes, Beatrice.
Yes.
I would just think a little more, a little, oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought just a little more certainty. Every now and then you seem to be looking for the word, but I knew you knew it and you said it. But there's just, if you practice a few more times, so it's just fun the whole way for you. Just one or two times, like 1 second here, 1 second there was like, yes, and then you'd go. It wasn't big, but I think it's what I would call smoother. Make it
Okay. Thank you. Thank you,
it's
Beatrice.
so good. It's such a good story.
And Kurt had a
Yes,
comment
Kurt.
as well.
Yeah, this is kind of a minor thing, but I noticed early on in the story there was you shifted tense a couple of times. You started in the past tense, and then the old man was doing things in the present tense, and then it went back to past tense again. The only reason I'd say that's something to watch out for is sometimes that's a tool that you can use to add emphasis to certain sections, and I don't think that's what you were doing today.
Thank you very much. Let me work on it. Thank you very much.
You know, that's just terrific. You know, I didn't even notice, Kurt. I didn't even notice. I was so enmeshed in the story. I had no idea she changed tenses. On a purely technical level.
I'm waiting.
On a purely technical level, Banu, one of the things that we deal with online is the different sound quality and the fact that we can't gesture more than a little bit. When the little boy is speaking, his voice is very high, and it comes across a little surprisingly loud because it is a higher pitch. And that's just on this screen. I imagine if you told it to a live audience that you were in the same room with, you wouldn't run into the same issue. And I think the fact that the type of comments you're getting back are very clear that we all think that was a kick-butt story. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
And thank you, Banu. And I know that you said that you have to leave quickly because it's early where you are.
Yes.
What did you say?
Yes.
Six
It's 6 o'clock in the morning.
6 o'clock in the morning. Have a
Yeah.
good.
Oh, even more kudos for telling that marvelous story hour in the morning. My goodness.
Go have yourself a delicious
So
breakfast, and we thank you enormously for joining us.
thank you. Bye. See you, everybody. Have a great time. Happy
Bye.
telling.
Thank you.
That's one of
6
those
o'clock in the morning.
amazing and classic stories that even if you've seen it or heard it or read it before, it still, there's a real sort of moment of joy when that resolves. You know, it's like, no, I'm planting this for the next generations. We have Harvey, who is our next teller. Are you ready, Harvey? You ready for me to tap you and say, tell us a story? This is about a 7-minute.
I'm good to go.
Okay, this is about a 7-minute story, Chris. You're
Should
on,
be.
Harvey.
One hopes.
You're on. Go for it.
I'm trying something new since we're into the virtual storytelling. I'm trying something new, so please excuse any of the picture problems you're about to say.
Cool.
There we go. It was time for the women to act. Heilbronn, that's my name. And I find it very curious to discover that there was a city in Germany with the exact same name. Not spelled a little bit differently, but it sounds exactly the same. Now, the story I'm about to tell you takes place 4.5 miles away from the city of Heilbronn, in a town called Weinsberg in the year 1140. Way back in that time, Germany wasn't the way we know it today. Germany was made up of a number of states under the control of the Roman Empire. And it was the Roman emperor that helped select who would rule those states. Well, King Lothar II had died. And it was time for a replacement. So they held an election. They did do elections in those days. And King Conrad III was the one that was selected to rule Germany. Now his first task, was to go and seek out all the states and make sure that they were all loyal to him. And he would take his army from place to place until they all became sworn to him. Well, the last person that he had to get was the Duke of Veldt. Now, the Duke of Veldt and Conrad had their differences. And it was told to Conrad that the Duke of Veldt was holed up in a castle in the town of Weinsberg. So he took his troops and he laid siege on the castle. You can see it behind me if you want. They surrounded it. Now, the people in the castle were confident in the Duke of Veldt. He was a very smart man. He realized this might happen. So he gathered lots and lots of extra food and water and clothing. And he also made sure that there were tunnels that led from the castle out behind the lines where he could send messengers to get more supplies if he needed. Well, King Conrad, though, he was getting impatient. And he thought, and he sent his army out to look for all the roads and all those secret passages. He blocked all the roads leading to the castle. Now, the Duke had problems. His food was running low, and he didn't know what he could do. Add to that, the king was getting impatient. And he sent a messenger to the castle and said, "You had better swear loyal to me and surrender, or else I will kill everybody within that castle." And he waited. No one knew what to do. And he got tired again. And sure enough, he sent another messenger and said, "If you do not surrender by daybreak, I will set fire to the entire town." I will put every inhabitant of the town and your castle to the sword. Well, it was time for the women to act. Now, a meeting was called. I don't know who called the meeting. I don't know if the men were invited or even were allowed to participate. But at the end of that meeting, a small group of women left the castle to meet with the king. And did they beg for mercy for the men? No. They pleaded for the innocence of the women and the children. The king listened to them. And he felt compassion for them and understood their plight. And he agreed with them. So he said they could leave in the morning, the women and children. Being a compassionate person, he wanted to make sure that they weren't left destitute or without any supplies. So he said they should gather whatever is precious and whatever they could cart out on their shoulders, they could leave with. Now, what happened the next morning? Well, that's what legends are made of. Because when those gates opened, the women and the children went forth. And what did they carry on their back? Were they carrying bags of food and extra water so they could survive the journey? Were they carrying gold or jewels or things that they could pay for things so that they could find shelters and live in another place? Nope. On the back of every woman was every husband, brother, uncle, and single man that lived in that village. Now the army was furious. They were upset that they were tricked, and they demanded that the king kill everyone. The king had a different point of view. He thought about it, and he was very impressed with how the women had acted. They had followed the letter of his agreement, and he was impressed with the loyalty they held for their wives. So he decided he was not going to kill anyone. And they could go, and he wouldn't burn down the town. And there was a second benefit to his compassion. The Duke of Welf, hearing what he did, decided to swear loyalty to the king. And from that day forth, they got together pretty well, at least for a while. Now, if you go to the village of Weinsberg now, you'll see the ruins of the castle. And in the middle of the village, there's a statue that represents what happened. They renamed the castle Burg Weibetreu, which is roughly translated as Castle of the Faithful Women. And in the middle of that town is a statue carrying all the women and the women carrying all the men. And it's very easy to find. It's only 4.5 miles from Heilbronn.
And you know
Yeah,
the way.
very good.
Oh, wow. Wonderful, Harvey. And I'm so glad you have your own town. Comments? Reactions?
Chris.
Go for it, Chris.
I'm there. I'm unmuted. It's that plot is in a number of clever girl stories.
Yes.
One from Russia, one from China, one from Egypt. That she's allowed to take the one thing that she values the most. That's remarkable, and I love the picture. That's so terrific. By way of comment, though, at the beginning of the story, I was losing the end of your sentences.
Okay.
You talk about whatever you were to talk about, and we just lose the last couple of words. So if you think about taking your breath and energy past the end of the sentence, that'll keep the volume up and the not intensity so much at the beginning of the story, but your commitment to the words, to the end of the sentence. Thank you. Marvelous.
And this story, by the way, comes from a book of Grimm's Legends. It's actually a paragraph in a book of Grimm's Legends that I just took and expanded. And with the help of Richard Martin, who's a storyteller in Germany, he helped me verify some of the facts. And
Good.
You did give me an idea. There's another story along those lines about a little town called Biberach. I lived when I was 11, that the children saved the town, and they have what's called the Schützenfest, the Festival of Protection, that honors the children in the town. They did it when I was 11. I assume they're still doing it. But no, but you've given me the interest to put that together as a performance piece. Thank you.
You're welcome to. This is in the story I put in, not the recent issue, but the last issue of the Storytelling Journal. It's one of the coolest stories.
I really like it. I really do. And I like this version of the most precious thing theme that we see in a number of different stories. There's always that sort of delightful moment of satisfaction where you just know something marvelous is going to happen. And then the image of all of these women carrying every single man in the whole village out on their back is just, it's wonderful. It's mind-boggling. Keep that story. It's terrific. Any more comments? Yes, Lona.
Unmute.
Yes, you must hit the right button to unmute.
There is that, yes.
You know, I actually would like to put out an appreciation that there is a man talking about the strength of women.
I like those.
It's very nice to hear that, you know, and you could tell, I felt like in your voice, there really was an admiration for those women for carrying their backs.
Thank you.
Okay. The one thing I would, I'm going to throw out, and I don't know if anybody else thought this, I would like to hear just a little bit of a differentiation in your voice when they're, you know, and the king said, you know, and go a little bit more into the character itself, if that makes any sense. Because he's such great, you know, and the king, you know, and they said, if you don't,
Right.
I
Right.
will kill every, you know what I mean? So there's
Yeah,
and there's
definitely.
gestures maybe you can do of, you know, to differentiate.
I find it interesting trying to tell a story to a screen, for one thing, but not standing, because I'm used to moving a lot. And in moving, it's a lot easier for me to generate the voice and whatnot. Sitting here, it's a thing. So I want to talk back.
In sign language, this means me too. And so,
Well, I think that we're all adapting to the small screen thing, but I think that it really becomes a question of what is that focus? I'm going to go back to something Banu did, which was she had a very mobile and expressive face. And she was close enough to the camera so you could really see her. You could feel the old man and the little boy, and you could see the changes in the face. And I think that one of the things that's happening for all of us as we get used to the screen is we're learning to use a very much more limited amount of our bodies. I think it's a skill, but we need to add a lot of them, don't we? I see Lona blowing her nose, getting ready because she knows I'm going to call on her next. You got to get yourself all the pipes clear. You got to be able to breathe freely. Take a deep breath, Lona. Thank you, Harvey, very, very much. Chris, this is we're giving her about 10 minutes. Is that okay? Got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In that case,
Ready?
ready, set, go. We'd love to hear a story from you, Lona.
I grew up in a very tiny town called Richmondville, New York. Now, there are still only 2,000 people in the village. But at this moment, I would like to acknowledge the first-time deer hunters that came to my hometown of Scary and sparked an open-air forum where children learned to spell their very first word. Now, right next door to Richmondville, there's this little called Warnerville. And in Warnerville got a diner. It's one of those old aluminum trailers. You know, the greasy spoon. It's called Pee-wee's. And at Pee-wee's Diner, it is the perfect place to go. And you're heading out to go deer hunting because they serve what the locals call a cup of black tar coffee. And that'll keep you going. And it is also the perfect place to go once you've gotten that deer and you go back and have some breakfast, because you see all of the backs of the trucks, SUVs are going to be pointing out towards Route 7. And if the local sheriff comes by and he sees a kill that he's admiring, oh, he's going to go right in there and he's going to find out to whom that animal belongs. Well, it happened on this day. The local sheriff came by and he looked over at Pee-wee's Diner and, oh, let me tell you, there was the most majestic of beasts on the top of a brand new gray Suburban. That sheriff cruised her into the diner, got out and went over to the Suburban, and he reached up his hand and he patted the head. And he ran it all the way along his body. Oh, it was truly majestic animal. He went on into Pee-wee's Diner because he knew he had to find out to whom this animal belonged. When he got in there, he looked up and down. Oh, he spotted him right away. There were two hunters up at the counter and they were eating some breakfast. And they were dressed in brand new camo from head to toe. Looked like they had stepped out of the page of the Sears Roebuck catalog. Sheriff goes over and sits down beside him. He orders up a cup of that black tar coffee. And he takes a sip. And without looking up or at them, said, so, first time deer hunting? Well, yes, sir, it sure is. It's amazing that you know that. Uh-huh. Yep, just amazing, isn't it? Takes another swig of that coffee. So, got a question for you. Well, yeah, sure, anything. You ever seen a deer before? Well, yeah, of course we have. We took a course, and they showed us pictures. Showed you pictures, did they? Huh? So you do own that gray Suburban out there, right? Yeah, that's ours. You're running 2, huh? 2 for 2. It's another swing. So, just kind of wondering, did the color of that animal happen to bother you at all? Well, at first it kind of did, but we knew that deer take off really fast, and we were going to take her down. We had to do it right away. Take her down. Take her down. Yep. Took another big swig of that coffee. One more question for you. So did the fact that that animal out there doesn't have any antlers, now did that bother you at all? Well, it did, but we remembered that deer actually lose their antlers at some point in time. Yeah, they do. Gotta give you that one. Gotta give it to you. My last question, though, is, now, does it bother you at all that that animal you got on the top of your gray Suburban out there happens to be the prize bull of one of our local farmers? Now, does that bother you at all? And with that, all of the rain from the faces of both those deer hunters, because they realized that they were going to have to reimburse the farmer for that prize, along with the potential offspring that would have come from that bull. Now, the farmer, now he decided he had to go on the defensive. So he went down to local feed and seed. And there's these big old yellow grease pins that you can get, and you mark your livestock with them. So he got 2 big old boxes, went out to his herd. On the side of every animal he had, he wrote these 3 letters: C-O-W. Be it stud, steer, heifer, or cow. And when parents drove by that pasture and their children were sitting in the back seats of those vehicles, they would say, "Look, Mama, C-O-W. That's a cow." And those mothers and fathers would say, "Yes, my dear, that is definitely a cow." A story from my community.
Should I ask if it's true?
My father worked for the highway department in Richmondville, New York. We had a farm, but it was kind of tough to make a go of it. So Daddy went to work on the highway department, and they would stop in Pee Wee's Diner every day and get a cup of coffee. And he overheard the conversation happening. Now, of course, you gotta fix it just a little bit so that it's tellable. And you have to kind of watch a little bit of the language that they actually would have used. But my father, and I don't know if I could, my dad said, he came home with that story. He goes, "Man, I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall, because how in the beep they got that bull on top of that Suburban, I would have liked to have seen." So, because he's like, how 2 men got that thing up there, I will never know.
Lona, I'm going to be laughing about that one for a while. I'll bet you have a bunch of comments coming in. Let's see. How about you, Nancy? You got a big smile on your face. What did you think?
Now you should be able to hear me,
Yes.
right? You can hear me?
Yes, we.
Just your expressions and your pauses. I mean, you do that so well. I enjoyed it so much. I will be retelling that one to my friend in a little bit, just because it's so funny. I'm from Pennsylvania, and I know deer hunters and the craziness of it. So I lived where they shut the schools down when deer hunting came. Anyway, thank you, Lana.
Thank you, Nancy. Let's see. Beatrice, what did you think?
Beatrice, unmute yourself.
Beatrice seems a little frozen at the moment. So let's
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, there we go. There we go.
Yeah. Thank you for it. But first, as I was saying, it grated on me. First, I thought, is this made of hillbillies or what is it? And then for some reason, you just pulled me right in. And I think you slowed down a little bit too, so we each voice. And it just was charming. I was just swept away by the end completely by your hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Beatrice.
Thank you.
One comment, Lona. When you went from the conversation between the sheriff and the new hunters, you made a very quick switch over to the farmer. And it took me, I know it's late in the day, but it did take me a minute to kind of think, who are we talking? What? Who are the characters? Oh, farmer. Oh, I've got to change my mental image of where the conversation is taking place. So if you could next time you tell the story around me, give me a little bit more of a transition, because I don't know whether anyone else felt the jump, but it felt a little discontinuous for me. Did anyone else have it?
See, I was thinking
Harvey?
about putting in there. Now, you might think this was the end of the story, but that farmer.
Yes. Harvey?
Yeah.
Actually, I was the opposite. I'm the opposite of you in that I felt between your voices. As soon as you let me think about it, I knew who was talking right away, and what made it flow better in that I could tell when you were switching to. Are you sure? You know, what do you think that whatever it was? And then when the farmer went, yeah, well, yeah, I worried about that. I could really tell the difference. And I like the way it flowed, because I think the way your voices and your facial expression, the moves you did with your fingers in terms of touching the side of your son. I agree with you, like you agreed with them right away. I thought that was very well put together.
Thank you, Harvey. Thank you very much. Yes, Chris.
To address Hope's little confusion, if you called him the farmer that owned the bull, we'd know who you were talking about.
Because see, the guys that were up in they were the first time deer hunters.
No, but that toward the end of the story, when the farmer that owned the bull takes the yellow marker and goes out and marks on all the cows, I didn't know who it was either until I realized that it was the guy who owned the bull.
Okay.
So if you just say the farmer that owned the bull, or the bull, make that little tiny piece of connection.
Now that farmer that owned that bull.
Exactly. Yeah.
Needed the defensive.
Right. But now, notice how slowly you're speaking. That owned that bull. We're talking much more quick at the beginning of the story. And I got lost a little bit with there were a couple names that went by really fast. And you said something about kids learning their first word, and that went really fast. And I thought, okay, we're going to figure this out eventually. But it just went by so fast, I wasn't sure what it was doing. Story. Does that make any sense?
Right. Yeah, and you won't know until the end of it either.
But I think at the beginning, a little bit more deliberate with the details that you give us.
Okay.
So that the beginning of it could be as slowly spoken as the scene, as the sheriff speaks when he gets in and sits down and has his. You see how slow.
Did you keep time the story? How long did
Yeah, it was less than 10.
Okay.
It was more like 7.5. You can afford to slow down. Not as we know that something's coming. I couldn't imagine. I thought I kind of figured it was a cow. Maybe it was somebody's. I hoped it wasn't anybody's dog. But you could give us, and at the beginning, that backcountry time that you don't have to speak metropolitan speed. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Ted, when you speak to your left, your microphone doesn't pick it up.
Oh, it doesn't?
No. So that when you were leaning to your left,
Okay.
I couldn't hear you very well. But when you come back over to the right, then it was.
Okay. Didn't know that.
Yeah, see there, when you went that way, I couldn't hear you.
Really? That way?
No, lean to your left.
That way?
Yes.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Right. Can't hear you.
I didn't know that. Okay.
We are just such a source of amazing factoids, some of which will impact us.
Well, the other thing we're learning is not to lean your finger toward the camera, because it gets weird when you do that.
Oh, it's really
But it's
big.
fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Yeah, I'm frozen. I think I'm frozen.
Yes.
Yeah, Lona, your image is froze there.
Yeah, I don't know what to do about it.
That's all right. What's the problem tonight is that the internet connection is not as robust as it usually is. And there may be thunderstorms in between, because I am on a satellite connection, which is iffy at best. So sometimes we've been getting tonight some skipping, some auditory kinds of variations, and freezing. Oh, she's left us. She'll come back. Let's see.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We certainly can. Lona, I absolutely loved the sheriff. He was stereotypical, quintessential, and he was great. Thank you for bringing us a good old boy. And we were just waiting for the payoff, and we got it. So thank you. Now it looks like we have an opportunity to hear the first virtual guild story from Michelle. And we are so delighted. Thank you, Michelle, for being brave enough to step up to the screen and lay your life out. Never mind. Tell us a story, Michelle.
All right, so this is like first ever. So, all right. So this tale is called The Master Noodle Chef and Her Helper. There once was a great master chef that lived in a mystical cabin deep in the forest, wore a soft white cap and a long white bib that swayed while she created. Her eyes were always smiling, and her lips were always upright. Her favorite thing to make was noodles, and she would take crumbs and eggs and oil and slowly and tenderly rub them between her palms. And in the middle would add herbs, different herbs from all over the world. And right before she would drop them in the salted water, she would blow light in each and every one. And she would drop these into the pot for her helpers to take care of. Now, as they rolled down into the pot, all her helpers, they came from the east and the west, the north and the south, to help care for her noodles. And they would put their wooden spoons into the pot, and it was multicolored, the pot. It was pearl, green, and blue, and brown, and they would stir all together at the same pace, as well as the master chef. She would slowly and tenderly continue to drop new noodles of all different assortments, sizes and shapes. They were round and long, some were plump, and she would always make sure she had dimples hidden inside each and every noodle. No one knew where they were, where they laid. Only she knew. And one day, there came a dark brown squirrel, and he was just hopping around the pot, and the helpers were just getting very distracted by this squirrel. And what he was doing is he would have a golden frame, and he would just dance around the pot with the helpers. And one day, one of the helpers, named Cthulhu, looked over at him, and his neighbor, Asha, said, no, get your head back down in the pot. Keep your head down. Don't get distracted. And each and every day, the squirrel would keep coming back, and he would just be so distracting. He'd play, he'd whistle, he would try to prompt them to come over and take a look at what he had. But Asha kept Cthulhu focused on the broth in front of them. And in the top of the broth, they could see the vision, the face of the master chef looking down happily and peacefully down at them and down at the noodles inside the broth. Well, a couple days later, the squirrel came back with something else very shiny, and it was a long golden spoon. And he would dance around, and he would sit there and he would brag that he's having such a great time with the spoon, and he could get heaps of fun with it, and he could dig mountains and build up all kinds of things. And he could also use that spoon to do his work for him while he rested and played and sometimes napped. Well, Cthulhu was just so mesmerized by this squirrel and these things that he just kept flashing all around them, because secretly Cthulhu would have really liked to have been special to the master chef, because he wanted other people, other helpers, to look up to him the way they looked up to the chef. So seasons came and seasons went, and one day the squirrel invited the helpers to come take a look at what he had. He said, aren't you bored of looking in that same pot all the time? Come and play, come and have a good time. Well, Cthulhu couldn't resist one day. And he said, if you let me use the spoon to stir with the others, I will come and play with you. So the squirrel gave him the golden spoon. He took out his wooden spoon, and the gold spoon stirred with all the other wooden spoons of the other helpers. And the squirrel said, no one will even know you are gone. You'll be back before they even know it. So they played. And after a little while, he said, okay, Cthulhu says, that's enough. I better get back to where I was. So he would go back to the large pot and would take out the gold spoon. He'd put back in his wooden spoon, and he would stir with the same pace as everyone else. And during this whole time, the master chef always stayed steady and she rolled her noodles and she put them inside the pot for the helpers to continually care for them. One day, after a very long nap, when Cthulhu took some more time off and played with the squirrel, he came back to switch back out the spoons, but his arms had gotten weak because he kept taking more and more time away from his stirring. Well, his arms started to get very, very heavy, and his hands, they had a hard time moving. They started to become numb. And he went up to the gold spoon to go back to where he was, and he could not get it out. Well, something started to shift with Cthulhu where he started not to really care as much as he once did. So he said, you know what, I'll just come back. So let the spoon keep going. I'm going to go play some more. I'm going to go sleep some more, have some fun with the squirrel. Seasons pass. He comes back and to join the others, and his arms were so shriveled up that he could no longer even lift his arms up to take out the gold spoon. And at that moment, the gold spoon started to pick up pace much faster than the others. And there was nothing Cthulhu could do. And so Cthulhu went off to the side and he said to the squirrel, help me. I can't get back to where I can't get back to the other helpers. Help me. And he said, don't worry about it. Just stay here, play with me. Don't mind them. They're fine. See, everything is happening on its own. And Cthulhu said, yeah, but look, it's going so fast. Everyone else, look at their faces. They're all in a panic. And he said, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. So in time, the pace became so fast that the other helpers pulled out their wooden spoons. And they went and they hid behind the shadows of the bushes because they felt ashamed that the master chef would be disappointed with their lack of pace like the golden spoon. As the season passed, the top noodles had become this big black glob. And the master chef, she continued dropping new noodles, and they would fall to the bottom of the beautiful pot, and they would stay down there. But on top, we had a big black glob of noodle. So one day, the squirrel came back, and he said, I'm going to have that. And so he just went to the pot and sucked up the big black glob of noodle. And he went up to Kalula and he said, I'm going to give me back he just took back the golden frame and the gold spoon from him. And he left him high and dry there all alone. And the great master chef sat there and just continually dropped noodles. And then he looked over at the bushes and she looked over at Asha, one of the helpers, and said, Asha, come help, bring the other helpers back here to help us. And they all came back, they put in their spoons or wooden spoons back into the little bit of new noodles that were at the bottom of the pot and helped them stir once again at an even pace. And with time, those young noodles, they absorbed more broth and they brought forth new broth up to the surface of the pot once again and made space for the new noodles that were dropped to the bottom of the pot, which in time again gained in their hope and just their hope looking for the future. And so they rose again to be the new healthy noodles at the top of the pot. And Cthulhu, he got to stay over on the side and he was never able to join the community again, but he got to stay off to the side. And the master chef again could look down on her helpers and know that they knew that they were good and faithful helpers. the end.
Thank you, Michelle, and well done. Well done. What a complex story to tell for your first story. Oh my, that's great. Good for you. And I'm sure that we'll have some suggestions, some ideas of how to take that story and maybe polish it a little bit or whatever. But let's just take a moment to congratulate you for the story, because that's an original story, isn't it?
Thanks. I missed a lot of parts.
That's okay. Storytellers always do. And you've got the witnesses here who will tell you that you planned the story just so. And all of a sudden you find out, instead of you following the path you thought you were going to follow and hitting all the points you thought you were going to hit, all of a sudden you're up here and you're wondering, wait a minute, how the heck did I get here? So we've been there. How about some comments? Let's see, who would like to be the first to respond other than me? Yes, Beatrice. Unmute yourself, my dear.
Unmute, Beatrice. There.
There?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
No,
Now,
you just did it.
now.
You just muted it.
Unmute. There we go. Okay.
There.
You hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I right away got thrown off by the frame. There was a gold frame, and I needed to know because frame didn't go with kitchen or spoon or any of the rest. So that seemed like, well, maybe you could drop the
I
frame.
missed the part saying it was shiny in the center. That's
No,
so
you
many
said
parts. I missed.
it was shiny in the center, but what's a shiny centered frame in a kitchen?
Oh, well, I didn't. Yeah, I forgot. That's why I said the pieces that I missed out was she was in the kitchen, but then they were outside in the forest. The pot was outside. The helpers were outside in the forest.
But I still am lost about the frame.
Yeah, I was supposed to describe more the frame and shiny and not say the word mirror.
Oh.
Because I didn't want to say the word mirror, because I said, well, it was a golden frame that was shiny in the center. And I thought one mind could say that's a mirror, but to another mind, they could think of an iPad or a phone or something that would capture their gaze.
I think for getting started into the story, I would drop it for now till it fits better, because everything else fit. And
okay.
I have to say, after a while, it's hard to care a lot that much about noodles. I mean, I love to eat, I love to cook, but I think some of the repetitions were maybe a few too many. The same process of the sinking. I mean, that's very cool. They sink to the bottom and the black stuff on top. It's all kind of strangely, wonderfully metaphysical, and you don't push it too hard, but it's there, captures us. But too many times of the noodles going up and down, I finally go, whoa, it's like too many rides on the merry-go-round.
You're right.
It's a neat idea. Just think of it through the listener's eye. I mean, if you don't want there to be a mirror, don't say there's a gold frame that glows, because I'm not going to ever think. I'll think, what was inside the frame? Was it a picture? I wouldn't think necessarily the way you want me to from that one clue. Okay, but your courage in telling such a long story, and you looked all happy and excited, I think that's remarkable for a first public filming storytelling. That's totally cool. So bravo.
Indeed. Indeed. Chris, you also had a comment.
I got lost in, but congratulations again. Congratulations on telling your force. That's amazing. That's amazing. I got lost in the time, because you kept saying that the seasons went by and they're still making noodles. And I agree with Beatrice. I wanted the noodles to go somewhere and have a function. You know, why were they making all these noodles? But you see where we're going with that?
Oh, totally. That's why I'm like, oh, I could kill myself, because I timed it. And as long as I had like my words, everything fit, all the descriptions of all the things you're talking about. That's why I'm like, oh, I had to have more time to practice more.
But that's what you do, though, that you have the story and you rehearse, And then you perform it and you say, okay, what happened? I left this part out, I left that part out. So you go back and do it again. And if it, and for the virtual guild, if it needs to be longer than 10 minutes, just let us know. You know, if it needs to be 12 or even 15 minutes, we had, the first time we met, I think we had a 15-minute story.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, when I did it, when I had the words and the script and everything in my normal pace, it fit in 11 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just being nervous. And so I just started missing parts. And then I saw your 2-minute sign. I was like, okay, I need to wrap it up. Start going down the other side of the mountain on this.
But figure out where you're going with it. And if it's seasonal, then all stories have a rising action and a falling action. That it rises to a point and then it falls from there. And if the seasons are important, then they need to have a progression. You see?
Yeah. Thank you.
So,
Thank you,
congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I think that you've had sort of the initial experience that many of us have had, Michelle, which is, oh my gosh, I told my story. Oh shoot. It went away. Storytellers will tell you have to tell a story at least a dozen times before you begin to get the rhythm and the pace of it. Kurt, I think you have a comment that would be a worthwhile and a pithy one. What do you think?
Well, I'm not sure that I do, but what I did want to say is I always appreciate the use of squirrel as some sort of a trickster character, and that came through beautifully because for all of the tricksters that there are in so many of the world's cultures, squirrel just always stands out for me because they just always look like they're up to something. And that I thought that came through really, really nicely in your tale today. Again, I agree with everybody else. It's a good tale, and with a little more practice and polish, I think it's going to be a really good tale.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've got a really good basis to work from. What I'd ask you to do for me, just from my point of view as a teller, is I'd like you to put yourself in the picture. I'd like you to map out in your imagination where this is happening. Where are you standing? So that, for example, when you say the squirrel's over there. The squirrel is always coming from that direction. So you help to cue your audience when you go, and then the squirrel. So sometimes just that, just having the terrain of the story so clear in your mind, you could shut your eyes and walk around it, unconsciously helps you to lead us into that terrain. I'd also like you to think about exploring, looking at the story not from just a series of events. Tell the story from the point of view of the squirrel, for example. Play with it, experiment. So, you know, I brought them this gold spoon, and they used it, but it went too fast. Maybe play with it.
That's sure I could do it. That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
You've got the first step. The next steps are adding in.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Character and point of view and stuff like that. So, as Beatrice said, brava, brava. And now that we have
thank you.
Now that we have mentioned Beatrice, we're moving into the wings. And guess who's in the wings? Beatrice! You have a story for us, don't you, Beatrice? Tell us a story.
I certainly do. Once upon a time, there was a fairy flying about, doing all the things fairies love to do. granting wishes, casting spells, and stirring up a little mischief here and there, when she heard a little voice. And it was coming from, a tiny vinegar bottle. The fairy bent closer and listened. What do you think she heard? It's a shame, it's a shame, it's a shame. I didn't want to live in this little vinegar bottle. No, what I should have is a pretty little cottage out in the tree with roses climbing up the walls. Oh, very well, said the fairy. Turn around 3 times when you go to bed tonight and see what you see by morning light. So the woman turned around 1, 2, 3, 4 times, went straight to bed. And in the morning when she woke up, she was in a little cottage in the country with roses climbing up the walls. And she was very happy. But she quite forgot to thank the fairy. And the fairy went north, south, east, and west, all about the business fairies do best. And she thought, I'll check up on the woman. Surely she'll be happy today. She flew to the rose-covered cottage. She listened at the rose-covered window. And what do you think she heard? It's a shame, it's a shame, it's a shame. I didn't ought to have this little cottage. What I should have is a big city house with lace curtains at the windows and people living up and down my street. That's what I should have. Well, very well, said the fairy. Turn round 3 times when you go to bed tonight and see you see by morning light. So the woman turned around 1, 2, 3, 4 times, went straight to bed. And in the morning when she woke up, she was in a big city house with lace curtains, windows, and people living up and down her street, and she was very happy. But she quite forgot to thank the fairy. The fairy went north, south, east, and west, all about the business fairies do best. And then she thought, now I'll check up on her. That woman's going to be very happy today. She flew to the lace curtain window and listened. What do you think she heard? It's a shame, it's a shame, it's a shame. I didn't live in this city house. What I am fit for is a castle. Very well, the fairy. Turn round 3 times when you go to bed tonight and see what you see by morning light. The old woman turned around 3 times, went straight to bed, and then, in the morning when she woke up, she had a golden crown and a golden palace, and people to order about all day long, and so she did. And she was very happy. But she quite forgot to thank the fairy. The fairy went north, south, east, and west, all about the business fairies do best, and then she thought, now I'll go see her. She will be so happy. She flew to the golden palace, listened at the window. What do you think she heard? It's a shame, it's a shame, it's a shame. I did not have this little castle and all these people to around I. What I am fit for, I am fit to be ruler of the whole round world. Very well, said the fairy. Turn around 3 times when you go to bed tonight and see what you see by morning light. She was in the bed. In the morning, when she woke up, she was back in the vinegar bottle. The end.
Oh, wonderful. I love the way you told that, Beatrice. Oh, what did you think, everybody? What about you? What did you think?
I thought it was really good. I mean, I kind of know the story. I like the meter of it, the rhythm of it when, Fairy tells her what to do about turning around and the morning light. That whole thing is really nicely done. I like the attitude she has when she wakes up, and then how she reacts to the fairy the next time. The confusion I had is the first few times you said turn around 3 times, she turned around 4 times. And that threw me off a little bit.
Thank
But
you.
that was really well done.
Thank you, Harvey. How about you, Michelle? Now that you're an accomplished practiced storyteller, tell us what you think of Beatrice's story.
I love the repetition and the pace of the words. So it's something you spoke about in the group before. It's when you have certain words that you're repeating so the audience knows what's coming and is involved in the story. So it's a great learn for me. So thank you. It was wonderful.
Super. Thank you so much. And there was a note also, and I see you, Chris, and Nancy, and I'll be right with you. But we do have a note from Lona in the chat screen. Lona, did you have a comment?
Actually, I had one for the other story, but that's okay. With this one, that's a story that I tell. It's an old English tale called The Old Woman Who Lived in a Vinegar Box. And it's really a fun one. I like the difference is you have that little poem in there, and I thought that was very cute.
Thank you, Lona. There certainly was quite a lovely use of the repetition of fairies doing what they do best, and I like that a lot. There wasn't so much repetition that we were all like, oh. There was just enough that it helped carry us along. Chris, you had a comment, and after Chris, I'll go to Nancy.
It was, I really liked that the fairy spoke in rhyme. The old lady doesn't, but the fairy did. So that the repetition was nice, but the rhyme made it tidy. And that also that you didn't, you said the little rhyme the first time and we thought, oh, that's lovely. And you said it the second time, but it wasn't any less invested from the performer. You see, you didn't throw it away. So that it stayed as important the second and the third time that you said it. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, interesting.
So that it kept its charm, as the fairies' little rhymes kept their charm as you went through the story. Thank you. It was lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Nancy, you had a comment as well.
I when you would say, and she forgot to say thank you. I love that part because this is a story I've told that I haven't told in a long time, but I could just hear little kids listening and following and repeating some of the things. Great. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Terrific. And I want to thank you all because...
Could you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can. And I want to send you, Michelle, some virtual fireworks since there's lots around because it's July 4th, Independence Day here. So I'm sending you fireworks because you deserve it. And thank you, all of you. We have about 8 minutes left. If there's any other comments, or if someone has like a 3-minute story, we could fit that in, don't you think? What do you think, Chris?
No, the one I had in mind is quite a lot longer than that. Sorry.
Oh, we'll just have to catch you the next time then. And what I will do then is remind you all that the next time that the virtual guild meets is the third Sunday, which is July 21st. And the time of that meeting is 12 noon, New York time. And what our focus, what our challenge is enchantment. And I think we had a very enchanting time, but maybe we'll have an even more enchanting time then. Yes, Chris?
And the meeting after that is the meeting during the NSN conference,
Yes.
which is the Saturday after that. It's Saturday, the 27th. And the workshop that Jim Brule is going to run is supposed to start at 11:30 New York time.
Yes.
Am I right, Hope?
Yes. He has asked. He has asked.
11:30 New York time.
He has asked that those of us who call in to be part of that gathering actually get on the call about half an hour early, so we can make sure that we don't have any connection problems from the site that we will be, and so that we get everybody kind of ready to go, all on the same page, literally.
Has he posted the Zoom link to that yet, or not?
I have posted the Zoom link. I have sent it. Check your email. I have sent it out in the email, and I have sent it. I've also posted it today, the link on the Facebook group page. If any of you are not on that in that Facebook group, just send me an email or just ask to be included. I think that I'll be posting that link probably quite a few more times just to make sure that everybody has it.
Okay.
And if you have any questions.
Harvey, did you have a question?
Yes, I have a suggestion.
I have a question.
More than this is the Worldwide Virtual Storytelling Guild. What would be nice in each session would be to see where all the people are from, so that we can realize how worldwide it really is.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. I like it. I think that's a terrific idea, and I will hereby, with a second from my second, which is Chris, I'm going to say we're going to make that happen, aren't we, Chris?
Yay.
Well, I had an idea. We started off doing that, and it took a little while to do it. How about if, when we start, if you open the chat screen and put your location in the chat screen?
That'll work.
Yeah.
But then we can see
terrific.
it easily. We don't have to take 10 minutes to say where are we from.
Could we add it onto our names?
No, Michelle, at the very bottom of the screen, there's a couple of commands down there, and one of them is chat.
Oh yeah, I got that open. I was just thinking if we added it on the name, we could see it each time. But
It is possible. It is possible. You can rename yourself. And let me come back around to that, because I think it was Nancy who had a comment, wasn't it? Nancy?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, I saw that the July 21st was Out of Control was the theme. You said enchantment. Which is it?
Oh.
Good question. Good question.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you, Nancy.
And you are absolutely right.
I saw that too.
You are absolutely right. It is
Okay.
out of control. Obviously.
I have a story for that, so.
Oh, and
No problem.
you know what, Nancy? You have a story slot reserved for next time.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Yay.
We'll be here.
I wanted
to
to
go
make
cook
sure.
noodles.
Finally.
Hi, everyone. I have to go cook noodles. Thank you.
Happy noodling.
Okay.
I will have Jenny Monroe, Steve Dove,
That was fun.
and Nancy Reeder. So we're going to have quite the crew.
Yep.
So anyway,
That's
I
wonderful.
will
Okay.
remind you that I will send out the chat, copy of the chat. Oh my goodness, somebody's very loud. I'll send out a copy of the chat after as it processes, and Jim will receive a copy of the recording, which he will also send out when he's ready, when he's done with that. So thank you all. Thank you all again and again, and I will see you on July 21st. And bravo to all of you. Good night.